and using ovens and dryers extra frequently. That way, when they do begin to grow and cease to leave those other appliances on anymore and begin to use HIDs, there is no substantial increase in the power usage. Switching to gas appliances and minimizing the use of remaining electric appliances also helps balance the electricity bill. Other growers use 2 grow rooms, which run alternately. This creates a more continual consumption level, as opposed to the daily spikes that would otherwise occur when the lights are on. Generally, unless you are using more than twice as much as your neighbor living in a similar dwelling, there should be no reason to worry. As a rule of thumb, adding 1,000 watts of lighting for each bedroom in your home should be fine. Stealing electricity has become a popular means of powering large commercial operations, especially in suburban homes that have been rented for the specific purpose of mass cultivation. By bypassing the electricity meter, unscrupulous growers can consume great deals of power without having to pay for it. However, stealing electricity is not only unethical and dangerous, but also a good way to get caught. Large discrepancies between the amount of electricity used on a grid and the amount that is properly accounted for by the meters will not go unnoticed. Electricity companies are becoming increasingly adept at locating residences that have bypassed power meters and will happily inform police in order to prosecute violators to the full extent of the law. A survey of newspaper articles reporting on a wave of busted grow-ops in Canada in 2002 shows that at least 90% of them reportedly had illegal electrical meter bypasses in order to steal power to run HIDs. This may suggest that these meter bypasses were, in fact, what attracted the attention of the electric companies and subsequently the police. Thermal imaging, also known as FLIR for forward-looking infrared, is a technology which distinguishes heat variations on objects, allowing the user to see by virtue of temperature rather than light. Many are familiar with this technology from TV shows where police helicopters are easily able to track suspects on the ground as they attempt to flee in the night. Thermal imaging devices make use of infrared radiation to determine relative temperature differences of objects. By using different colors to represent different temperatures, they create a visual on a screen, similar to that of a viewfinder on a video camera. In fact, many modern thermal imaging devices look and operate just like small handheld video cameras and are just as easy to use. Handheld thermal imaging devices can easily be used from a moving vehicle or from an aircraft and are most effective at night. Because of the radiant heat on objects caused by sunlight, thermal imagers are not very practical to use during the day. Contrary to what some believe, thermal imagers are not X-ray machines and cannot see through walls into a home or building. However, it can provide a very good idea of what might be going on inside of a home or building, especially if there is a grow operation there which uses high-intensity grow lights. The reason that thermal imagers are so effective in spotting grow operations is because grow lights create so much heat, and the thermal imager can see this heat. However, a basic understanding of this technology is enough to demonstrate how thermal imagers are useless when it comes to detecting a well-placed and insulated grow room. Thermal imaging devices are able to spot grow houses because of the great deal of heat given off by HID lights. A 1,000 watt lamp in the attic of a house is very obvious to a thermal imager, but only because the heat of the light causes the roof to be much warmer than neighboring houses. It is not the actual heat inside the attic that the thermal imager device picks up on. It is the outside surface of the roof, which is warm because of the heat that has transferred through the ceiling to the outside surface of the roof. So the more the roof is insulated, the less heat transfer to the outside surface and the less detectable it will be to the thermal imager. Such insulation, however, would need to be much more intensive than what a regular house would normally have. The problem is that if the insulation effectively eliminates heat transfer to the outer surface, then where does the heat go? The heat has to go somewhere, or else the grow room will become way too hot. There are two hypothetical solutions. One is to diffuse the heat evenly throughout the house so that no one room has a suspicious amount of heat escaping from it. To a thermal imager, the house will not appear to have any hot spots and instead be an all-around uniform temperature. However, unless this causes the house to be a normal, reasonable temperature, especially in comparison to neighboring houses, then the heat loss will still be noticeable and suspicious. The other alternative is to direct the heat out a chimney or dryer vent. The heat will be very noticeable to a thermal imaging device, but not suspicious, because it is normal for heat to be escaping from these areas. Assuming the heat isn't coming from the chimney in the middle of the summer. So, of course, it is important to use common sense. Because it might be difficult to construct a grow room in an attic or upper floor bedroom with sufficient insulation to stop heat from transferring outside, it is much better to put the grow room in the basement. Not only will heat transfer not reach the outer surfaces of the building as easily when it comes from the basement, but even when it does, it will often have the resemblance of that from a water heater or furnace. Even better is to build an insulated room within the basement and properly insulate vent ducts where warm air escapes. This way, there is little chance of any heat being transferred to outside surfaces of the home. So then, to sum up, thermal imaging devices do not see the heat inside a building, but rather the heat that transfers to the outer surface of the building. So, by using effective insulation and venting the heat somewhere that it looks reasonable, like out a chimney, dryer vent, or air conditioner exhaust, things will appear normal. In 2001, the United States Supreme Court ruled that thermal imaging devices cannot be used to survey a private residence without a proper search warrant. The court concluded that such a search was an invasion of privacy, which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. This means that if a thermal imager is used on a home in the United States and no warrant was obtained, the evidence is not permissible in court. However, police could still accidentally discover suspicious heat loss from a house while using a thermal imager device during an unrelated investigation. Knowing your rights and the different tactics used by police can help a great deal when it comes to protecting your civil liberties and the privacy of you and your family. Police will use intimidation and lies in order to further their investigations and make arrests. By asserting your rights, you can prevent police officers from abusing their power. Perhaps the most important thing for an indoor grower to know about police and their procedures is that without a warrant, generally, they cannot come into your home. In fact,